feel free to answer this however you want, but I got to ask because I think many of our audience members are thinking it. But are you VPN friendly?
No, we're not.
Not be able to answer that.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Lines, the only podcast purifying the sports betting industry. Remember to like, download, subscribe, follow us on all the socials at InPlayLive. Today's show, Eliminating the VIG. I'm your host, Shane Mercer, as always joined by Andrew Pace, founder of InPlayLive, a community of like-minded sports bettors dedicated to long-term success. And today we've got Jacob Fortinsky joining us. He is the CEO and co-founder of Novig, which calls itself the first prediction market for sports. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Really excited to have you on here. So give us a little bit of the origin story. What is Novig, and how is it the first prediction market for sports?
Yeah, so the idea in a nutshell is to introduce financial exchange technology to the industry of sports betting, basically cutting out the middleman, which is the house, and creating a two-sided marketplace similar to companies like Betfair, but very much modeled after prediction markets. So I started the company 3 years ago while I was a senior at Harvard with my friend Kelechi. Both of us had experience in financial trading. I was very active in betting on politics, on betting markets, and I was introduced to sports betting sort of through the poker scene, which I was very active in, and was just dumbfounded that there existed this industry with $2 trillion in global volume each year that was still dominated by these legacy players that essentially were the counterparty of every bet. They took in 8 to 10% VIG on average, and felt like there was just a much more fair, more sort of efficient and better way, more innovative way of structuring this market that resembled sort of under the hood like a Coinbase or a NASDAQ. But like on the surface, was more similar to other prediction markets like Polymarket or Kalshi, and sort of like Robinhood for betting, where we say, we're the first commission-free or no VIG platform where you can put up $100, a stranger can put up $100, and winner gets $200. On basically any other betting platform in the world, winner would get $200. Winner would get $180, but on Novig, winner would get $200. So that's sort of the value proposition in a nutshell. Happy to dive deeper into how we structure the market or how we enable that.
Oh, keep going.
Yeah. So, it's basically just a central limit order book, right? So we allow users, I'd say our value proposition is threefold. One is that we will, we have liquidity in every single market. So unlike other sort of exchanges, we provide the liquidity ourselves. So if we can't find a counterparty for you, we'll serve as the counterparty.
Okay, I gotta stop you there. So how is that possible? Because that's amazing.
Yeah. So I think we are really trying to build the best sports wagering system, the best user experience possible, and the way that we seek to do that is by creating a marketplace where anyone can offer their own price. But because two-sided marketplaces often have this cold start problem, they have a hard time reaching critical mass.
100%. Yep.
We're basically primarily as a bootstrapping mechanism saying that we'll always be providing a price in every single market. So, if we're at minus 104 on each side, users can come in and say, I'm willing to do minus 103 on each side, sort of be your own house, be your own book. People can bet into you, and then you're getting plus 103 on each side, sort of being a two-way market maker the way that people do in securities markets or crypto markets or whatnot. But the idea is that in every single one of our markets, you will never have the issue of going onto the platform and not having a counterparty, which if any of your listeners are familiar with, betting, I know people that would bet NBA on like Betfair and BetDAC and whatever.
They're the only person trying to do it.
Yeah. It's like, there's $5 to bet against. And like, you might say, there's like, $3,000 of liquidity available, but it's like that's like literally $5 at a reasonable price. And the rest is at like, whatever, minus, 900 or something.
Right. So let's just paint a hypothetical scenario right now. I want to bet on some baseball tonight. I go over to Novig and I am offering a line and there, let's just say there is not someone else to pick up the other side, I can just take your line instead.
Yeah,
Correct?
so it's just a public anonymized exchange. So you don't necessarily know who your counterparty is. It could be Novig, it could be your friend, it could be a stranger or hedge fund or whoever.
Right.
The idea is like it's the same way when you're, let's say, buying 10 shares of Apple. You don't necessarily know who's on the other side. It could be
Right.
Citadel or it could be some Joe Schmo.
So can we talk about that quickly before we move on? Like,
Sure.
You guys have funding in place to get started then so that you can offer some of these lines, or you're outsourcing all of them?
No, so we're internalizing everything. So
Okay.
unlike other exchanges, and I have nothing but respect for anyone who's trying to innovate in this space. But I think the biggest challenge at start, with scaling any business is if you're outsourcing the sort of the core service that you're providing your users, it makes it very difficult operationally, commercially to be successful. So from day one, we realized, we actually need to be able to provide these prices ourselves. So if you go into a very liquid market, say like an alt spread that's like very far from the main line or whatever it is, those prices will basically 99% likely be against us. But if you're betting, let's say, NFL money line, in the playoffs, then it's more of an efficient market, and we have less of a need to provide liquidity in those markets.
Okay, I'm just gonna kind of keep I really don't want to take you off the train of thought when you were initially walking us through, but just because you brought up the alternate lines.
Sure.
So if we head over to your site, you just mentioned that alternate lines are available, which I mean, a lot of exchanges that are starting out don't have a feature like that at all. Would there be other markets available, things like player props and other such, quarter lines, half lines, or is it just going to be, main markets with alternate lines?
Yeah, so maybe it's helpful to just sort of level set and say that. So we were live as a regulated sportsbook offering a quasi exchange product in Colorado for the first 4 months of this year. We're doing very well. We were growing 90% month over month. Very strong feedback from users. People loved it. But as we're thinking about expanding, it became very clear that the regulated environment was challenging for a number of reasons. So we're pivoting to a sweepstakes framework, similar regulatory framework to companies like Fliff. So it'll be a sort of no purchase necessary with like a free to play version as well as a paid version with Novig coins and Novig cash. And the idea, I'm happy to sort of explain that in more detail, but we'll be launching in 42 states in DC next month in mid-August.
Boom.
Sort of our anticipated timeline. Yeah, very excited. Very big news. The idea is really to try to build the best sports prediction market. We can't legally call it betting, but the ability to win cash prizes, compete for Novig cash, which is 1-to-1 with USD, sort of a virtual currency, which allows us to offer our product essentially nationally. And the idea is, we want to build the best exchange, but even sort of more fundamental than that, we want to build the best, sports prediction app, period. And we don't want necessarily everyone to know that this is like an exchange. So if you're just accustomed to being a price taker and you're not interested at all in setting your own lines, like the fundamental user experience, the app looks remarkably similar to a FanDuel or DraftKings.
Very
cool. On the order slip, you can sort of toggle between what we call make and take. So instead of taking the best price, you can click make and then type in your own odds, swipe, and it'll say this order is available to the market, and then you get notified.
Beautiful.
2 seconds or 2 minutes when it's filled, you can cancel it at any time.
Beautiful.
I got to
right
ask,
now the market is.
Sorry to cut you off there, Jacob, but I just want to ask quickly. Because you guys are doing everything internally and you're posting lines, if the liquidity isn't there for all of these markets that you're promising to offer, are you taking a vig on those? I understand that there's an option there,
Sure.
for peer-to-peer betting, but I imagine that you've got to be taking a little bit of a vig on those markets that you're creating and providing all the liquidity for.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's not something that we try to hide. Like there is a spread that's necessary to post lines. I think everyone understands that there's risk in doing that, and if we posted minus 101 or plus 100 on every single market, we'd be out of business. So the idea is it's no vig in the sense that on peer-to-peer transactions, there's no middleman taking any sort of cut. When we're posting liquidity, it's typically at like a 3% spread. So, whatever, minus 104 or something on each side. But then anyone can just, post a better price. And the idea of this is not really like to, be a sports book and to sort of hide the fact that we're like a counterparty of a lot of trades. It's really just so that, we can solve this problem where like if there isn't a counterparty, we can be the counterparty. And even in those instances, we'll give you a better price than you would get at even a company like Circa. So to answer your question, Pace, about the markets that we offer right now, it's all the major sports, totals, spreads, and money lines. So, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, college basketball, college football. We're rolling out tennis very shortly. We'll be rolling out MMA and golf and other markets in the next couple of months. So when we start initially, just because we're trying to concentrate liquidity so we can, there's this trade-off between offering more sports and having deeper liquidity in the markets where we offer. So starting just with the main markets, but we also have like a full array of alt lines. We'll be rolling out player props. Also in the next few weeks, we'll actually be like the first exchange company with parlays available as well, which will come in the next, I'd say, 3 or 4 months. So, we move very fast. We're like slowly working on building out the product. The initial sort of product that we've built is focused around main markets, but, we hope to quickly expand beyond that.
That's so cool, man. Congrats on the big launch and getting rolled out to like nationwide. That's awesome. So like from a liquidity standpoint, obviously you just mentioned Circa, providing a VIG, but one that's even less than theirs. Obviously that's got a lot of appeal, and we know firsthand when that is the case, the players that you attract are going to be pretty sharp guys out of the gate. So if I were to come along and I wanted to bet like say $100,000 on one of the baseball games tonight, would you guys take that wager today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, this is an important caveat that given the regulatory framework under which we're operating, we're currently restricted to offer max payout of $5,000. You can bet infinitely as many times. You can go and place 20 bets with $5,000 payouts, or you can bet 200 times. But on individual orders, they are limited to $5,000 payouts. So yeah, that's an important caveat. But the idea is, we're not limiting any bettors. As I said, we have infinite rebets. So you'll be able to get as much money down as you want. And if we're the counterparty, every time we get a max wager, we'll like move our price by, 0.5% or so. But
Right. So if I want to spend $5,000 on a game, I can do that. If I want to spend a second $5,000, I can do that, but I might not be getting the same price as would be typical in the industry across the board anyway. So that system is in place, because that was going to be my next question, because you were going to attract a lot of sharp players if you said no to that question. So
yeah, I mean, I think we set our lines not so dissimilarly from other sharp books, in that like we look at where the rest of the market is at. We'll see what BetCris and Pinnacle and whoever is what their prices are, and we do a lot of modeling ourselves. So sometimes we will have an opinion on the market, and we'll be 3% off on the market. So maybe our prices won't necessarily be better on both sides. We'll have a lower hold on average, but it might be like on one side of the market we're roughly equal to the market, and the other side we're 3 or 4% better.
If I want to use Novig, so I'm in Ontario and I checked out your website. I've joined the wait list, so I'm on the wait list. But when will I have access to Novig?
Yeah. So first, that gives me an opportunity to plug our wait list. We have very big things coming both next month and in the coming months. So I encourage all of your listeners to go to our website and sign up for our wait list. It's not just like a marketing tactic. We do ship all of our products that we've built first to the people on our wait list before making them publicly available. Unfortunately, right now we don't have any immediate plans to expand to Canada. I would love to. I'm part Canadian actually, and it'd be very cool to open up to the rest of the North America market. I hope that at some point in 2025 it will be available in Canada. But for now, we have plans just to go live in 42 states in the US and DC.
So you started off though in Colorado. Give me a sense of how that went, and now how are you going to make this expansion and do it so quickly?
Yeah, so we obtained a sports betting operator license in Colorado. We launched there January 2nd, and we're doing quite well. The regulators didn't allow us to offer the what we call the make order feature, or what other places might call a limit order feature, where we allow users to offer their own price. So we were basically operating as a sharp sports book there. We did our best to sort of balance the book and to move lines according to the action so that it essentially functioned sort of like a peer-to-peer platform. That's ultimately why we decided to move in the sweepstakes direction, that we could basically implement our vision as we initially intended to do so, really unrestricted by some of the more, I'd say outdated sports betting regulations. But in Colorado, yeah, we did very well. We were growing 90% month over month. We had probably about 2,000 users who, loved our platform. We had like the best, or if not maybe the second best prices in the market. Given the sort of marketplace dynamic of what we're building, the prices will only get better as we get more users. You can sort of think about it like the bid ask spread of an Apple share is much, much narrower than some penny stock, or, the eBay, the prices for like the most liquid products are the ones with the most competitive prices. So as we scale, I think that will probably, ultimately approach the limit of truly Novig. But anyway, yeah, we did very well in Colorado. We really were spending nothing on marketing, is mainly just word of mouth. So when we launch next month nationally, it's going to be primarily just our wait list and a referral network. And then we're going to start doing a larger marketing push towards the end of the year. So yeah, I think if we did as well nationally as we did in Colorado, we're going to be doing something, I think, really revolutionary in the industry.
Yeah, I mean it's a big jump to get into 43 states. I don't know of many exchanges that are creating as many markets as you are and are going to be that widely available in the US.
Yeah, and we're like, to that point, we're going to be available in states like California, Texas, Florida, states where FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Circa, et cetera, are not able to operate legally. So there's, I think, a real regulatory arbitrage opportunity that we're leveraging, similar to the way that DraftKings and FanDuel did in their early days. So I think that's going to allow us to not only have a better product and better prices, but also to be available in places where our competitors are not.
Feel free to answer this however you want, but I got to ask because I think many of our audience members are thinking it. But are you VPN friendly?
No, we're not.
Be able to answer that.
No, it's not even just that I want to answer that. I will say in the affirmative that we are VPN unfriendly.
Okay.
We are, I think that given that we're now operating in a less regulated environment, I think it's very important for us to establish a sense of integrity and credibility among our users. And so we're holding ourselves to the same standard that the regulators held us to in Colorado. So we're not changing any of our KYC or geofencing, AML, anti-fraud, any of that. All of those controls are staying the same, even though we're not technically required to anymore. So we're still going to be just as strict as as any regulated operator in preventing VPN access.
I appreciate the honest answer, but I had to ask because I just know many are thinking it.
Sure.
I have a couple questions here. So the first thing I want to just touch on is the Paris Smith anti-exchange comment. I mean, she very much said, unless someone could solve these things.
Yeah.
And she was referencing liquidity. She was referencing like a market maker's ability to offer their lines on both sides of a wager, so that when you come on there, you could just take one side as a user. And then obviously some of the other things I think that you touched on are really cool from the standpoint of, like you said, it's going to look like a DraftKings or a FanDuel, which is, I mean, that's pretty important, I think, for for adoptability. I think there is a challenge with, like, if you want to go make a sports bet, people don't necessarily know how to do that, and they need to learn how to do it. And then they don't want to go learn how to do this whole new thing. So you do want that simplicity. So I just wanted to touch on that. The next thing that I wanted to ask, just because I'm going to be in Nevada next week, or this week rather. Sorry, I'm going tomorrow. Geez, my calendar all messed up. Can I, as a Canadian, can I use the product while I'm in the United States, or do I have to have a U.S. Address?
You can use the product while you're in the U.S. Unfortunately, we're not going to be available in Nevada. It's
Okay.
8 states where we're not going to be allowed. But yeah, in any other place, it just checks your location. Doesn't matter where you're a resident of.
Very cool.
And yeah, to return briefly to your earlier point, I mean, this is maybe a little too like nitty gritty, but by virtue of pivoting to this alternative regulatory framework, we're exempt from a lot of the things that make operating an exchange very difficult. Number one, the federal excise tax. So there's a tax of 25 basis points on all volume, which exchanges face. So that makes it very difficult for low margin products, right? If you are taking an 8% VIG, giving 0.25% to the federal government is much less of a big deal than if you're, having a 2% spread from a business model perspective. Number two is that we don't have to pay the tax that each state has on net revenue as well. So like just operating a regulated sports book in the US is very difficult because you have to abide by, 32 different states, privacy policies and marketing rules and tax laws, as well as the federal government. So you're sometimes double paying for lots of things. Number three is that, and most importantly, is that we don't have to deal with the Federal Wire Act in the same way. So we could have one singular liquidity pool, and some exchanges in the past have really struggled with being able to replicate that in each state where they operate. So, just for example, if you're live in, let's say, New Jersey and Colorado, you can't have a user in Colorado bet directly against someone in New Jersey. And then you'd have to have sort of local markets. And then you'd have to get your market makers to be licensed in every state where you operate. So the more market makers that you have around the table that, you're depending upon to offer your core product to your users, the more people that have leverage over you as a company, and it makes it very difficult to generate enough revenue for the business model to be, I think, commercially viable.
And you've solved that, is what you're saying, right? You're saying because of the route that you've gone with the prize model.
Yeah,
that is solved.
So some of it is solved by virtue of moving in this sweepstakes direction, and some of it is, I think, solved because we have just very smart people that have, I think, really solved some of these problems that I'm not exactly sure why some of our competitors haven't been able to solve. But yeah, I think, it's a very challenging problem, and it requires, I think, very sort of delicate solutions in order to navigate.
I think separately of your product, just from what I've seen where I'm located, things can change quickly, right? So I do genuinely hope that there isn't any cracking down on this model, because this is very pro player and very good for the industry to have this sort of competitive landscape. So yeah, I really do hope that this works for you guys long term. I'll definitely be a supporter. Do you guys offer live betting?
Yeah, we offer live betting. We have decent liquidity for live markets. I think we basically are, like, aside from SGPs, which is a little bit more complicated, we have the ability to really offer like everything that you as a sharp bettor are probably looking for.
I mean, since you reference sharp bettors, I know those markets can be used to your advantage, but as a general statement, I don't think that you not offering same game parlays is that big of a deal.
Yeah,
I don't think you're going to upset too many sharp bettors with that one.
Yeah. I think the sports books they hold those near and dear to their heart with the hold that they have on them. So
yeah.
cool.
So,
All right, Shane. Oh, go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, well, just on that, like when we do roll out parlays, the idea is to really have like very small hold in those markets, right? And so if you think about the industry average hold as, let's say, 8 or 9%, our average hold will be about 2.5 or 3% in our markets. But in the parlays, if you're doing a price comparison of parlays, I think like on, let's say, a 3-leg parlay, it's probably going to be something like 6% or 5% compared to like 15 or 20%. So I think that there's actually a lot of room to educate users who maybe are not that price sensitive at the margins of like betting, the difference between -104 and -110. But if you're saying on your $10 parlay, FanDuel is offering you, $6,000 and we're offering you $9,000, I think, that is, I think, a big area where you can get people to care about price difference.
Totally. I think that's super important. I think sometimes people replace convenience for like the most basic of mathematics, and the lack of education there and the laziness in the industry is sometimes just shocking to me. Like if you told me that I'm going to make some, expected loss parlay today, but if I spend just a couple of minutes placing it over here instead of here, I could win, potentially 10 or 20% more. Here in this example, you said 6,000 to 9,000, so 50% more. Like I'm gonna go make that change, but it's crazy how lazy the industry can be with that kind of stuff. But it matters, and it matters so much in the grand scheme of just losing less. If you're doing this for entertainment, we keep referencing sharp bettors. If you're doing this for entertainment, wouldn't you want to lose less? So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I think that's a totally fair point. But I'd push back a little and say, I think you have to remind yourself that people are primarily playing to have fun, right? And if you're not able to solve the convenience and user experience thing so that it's, as easy to use, as fun, as sleek, as sexy, then, there are lots of people that just don't care about a slight price improvement. Even I was just talking with a couple of my investors who bet on sports and they just use FanDuel. And I say, you have like, X company like available in your state, like, and they're like, yeah, whatever. I don't really care. Like, I know it's better for me, but like if they're investing in Novig and they can't even bother to download some other app, then like, you just have to remind yourself. And this is something that we as a company.
Yeah, you have to say to them, like, you are the problem. You are the reason we are like, we need you to understand the product you've invested in. And if you don't understand that, then what's the point? Like you're like, you have to go place your bet at this other sports book just to prove our concept to a certain extent.
Totally. But I think my point is that like there's two sides of that. One is, okay, we got to educate people so they understand like they are the problem. They should be doing a better job, instead of giving away money. But on the flip side of that, like within the company, we always try to remind ourselves, like, we're not just building for sharp bettors. Like, sharp bettors are okay with the little inconvenience. They're probably going to come to us regardless. And so most of our efforts are like, how do we make this app as sleek and seamless as possible? So someone who just doesn't give a shit about price will still bet on Novig, right? And if we're able to do that, then we're going to be able to get more casual money on the platform, which will make it more attractive for sharp bettors. We'll have, ultimately, we don't want just a sort of toxic pool of sharp bettors competing head to head. We want a sort of a vibrant, sort of diverse user base. And that's why like a lot of our marketing effort is really targeted towards people that maybe are attracted to us for more of like the social aspect or the, transparency. We show like multiple levels of the order book, and they're like very interested in some of the, we aggregate positions in cool ways. So you can have like a portfolio that resembles a traditional fintech app. So we're trying to do lots of things that are, where we compete not just on price. But yeah, obviously we need people to start caring a little bit more about price, which I think they are. Like, the percentage of people today, just even in my own life, who are line shopping, who are using apps like Picket and OddsJam and similar tools to, compare different prices. I think it's gone up probably by 3 or 4-fold. So I think I'm very encouraged by the state of the market, and I think there's strong demand for what we're building.
Well, it's very cool. Now, I want to ask though a little bit more about how you're operating, because you are a startup, and you're telling me that you're offering all of these different markets, and in many ways you're both exchange and sharp book at the same time. And I just want to ask, like, how many people are working at this startup? How are you going to keep up with all of the sharp action that's going to come in?
Yeah, we have 11 people at the company.
11?
Yeah.
You guys working around the clock?
We just went from 9 to 11 last week, actually. I think it's about, working smart, not working hard. I think like we have figured, and I don't want to like overstate the, how brilliant our team is or say that it like has come to us so easily. I think, we've tried a lot of things that haven't worked so well and are always trying to improve our operations. But I think there is this sort of myth that the larger your team is, the more successful you are. I think, we did work with some overseas developers for a little and with some contractors, and our team was a little bit bigger at one point. And I think we've realized that, having a lean team actually has enabled us to do more, to move faster. As long as they're people, it's like we like to say we'd rather have a team of 10 who are all A players rather than a team of 50 or 100 that are B and C players. So we have a very high bar for who we bring onto the team. We just hired 2 people. I think we had over 1,000 people apply for those 2 roles. And yeah, I think, we're all in person, which I think helps a lot in terms of just productivity. We've had some users, for example, say like, oh, you should build this feature. And we've built it and then implemented it into the app within 72 hours. And I think there are very few other companies, especially in this industry, that can say something similar. Just really trying to be incredibly responsive to our users, having this sense of like, this is really a community focused approach. I didn't even say this in the origin story, but the idea really came to me was when I was a part of all of these networks of sharp bettors on like Discord, Telegram, Signal, just people betting against each other and say, oh, I want to bet 2,000 at, 53% on the Red Sox tonight. And someone else would say, oh, I'll take, 1,400 of that or whatever it is. And it was like, okay, this is just a low tech exchange and it's working incredibly well. And that's, that's when the idea came to me of like, we should just formalize this. But anyway, yeah, I think it's all to say that we're really trying to build a product like for sharps, like by sharps, and sort of alongside that also trying to build a product that can compete, can attract sort of more casual users as well. But yeah, to answer your question, like I think we just don't waste time. There's very little bullshit in the company, and people just get their jobs done.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. You have really high talent and super smart people working there. But here's I just want to sort of give you an example. We had Adam Bjorn on the show a few weeks back. Another great episode for everybody out there who hasn't listened to go back and have a listen to. And here's a guy who's built. He spent his whole life betting on sports, and now he's the CEO of a company called Planetech. I don't know how familiar you are with him or his company, but one of the things that
Jacob did mention BetChris earlier. He powers.
Oh, you did, right? That's right. Yeah,
for BetChris. Yeah,
right. So Jacob, you're obviously familiar with him. Then he sort of talked about how he would go and hit up books in the middle of the night because he knew that their trading team only had one person working at the time. And, he would hammer lines and sort of take advantage of the lack of manpower at specific books. How do you what happens when you get 20,000, you open up in 43 states and you have 20,000 sharp bettors hammering your lines overnight?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, I would just invite any of your listeners to, just download our app and try beating us. I think, there's a very
I love it.
Challenge accepted, I think.
I love it. That's such a great start. I love it.
Like our main ads actually are like showing what percentage of users are profitable on Novig compared to other apps. And it's like 43% on Novig compared to 3% on other apps. So, I think it is a place where winners play, where winners bet. To answer your question, we have really, we've made a lot of our trading algorithmic. So we don't actually, it's very little is actually manual. Of course, there's some stuff that's manual, like if there's, whatever, I can't say exactly what, but, we have eyeballs on the system at all times. But I think and I really respect the Planetech people and anyone who's really trying to build a better version of what's out there, because I think there's just so much room for innovation. So I really respect that. I don't want to come across as, throwing shade at any of these people, but I think there are lots of people that just think of like, my co-founder Kalechi likes to say, like, sports betting feels like Wall Street in the 70s, where like it used to be a lot of like over-the-counter trading, whereas like manual people running from one room to the other, and a lot of, and then just like slowly became more financialized. Like all of this was really, just tech could do a lot of what is done manually in this industry. So even aside from like all the exchange stuff, I think we're really trying to be at the forefront of really automating just a much sharper, much more efficient, much more responsive sportsbook, so that we don't have these problems of just having these like dumb college kids as traders who on the overnight shift that can get beaten.
Well, I think too, Shane, just one thing on that point is like he is to an extent referencing the past, right? Which now obviously from a technological standpoint, things have changed. And Jacob, you don't need to throw shade at anyone. You're starting a company that you should be proud of what it is that you've done. So like, I kind of want you to throw shade a little bit, like take a shot at the industry. Like what was your point there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't shy away from, throwing shots at people in the industry. Some of those guys, whatever. I mean, people
just let it rip, man. We're here to talk.
Well, I mean, some of those guys have thrown shade at us, saying like, "Oh, we're not like these naive Harvard kids that think they could like reinvent this industry without having worked in the industry before." I think like I get that point, but I think that there's value in coming with a fresh set of eyes, having more experience from the world of prediction markets and financial markets, with a deep understanding of sports. Like, I'm a sports fanatic. I think it's a shame that so many people lose their love of sports as they get more into sports betting. But anyway, it's all to say that, I think there are a lot of people that, you're going to look back on them and they're just going to be very embarrassed by a lot of their takes about the industry. And, I don't want to say, hey, there's no disrespect at all, but I just strongly believe in the model that we're building. And,
I mean, industry aside, if you look back over the course of time, disruptors that come in and do make a wave, they're going to be able to pinpoint times when people, said that they couldn't do it, or when people ignored, whatever advice or strategy it was that they were going forward with because they didn't think that was like the way it was done. Right.
Totally.
So like,
and also to the
degree that, like, well, just let me finish really quickly here. To the degree that you guys are successful, is yet to be seen, right? So it's like, if you're pro player, we're going to be sitting in your corner rooting for you. And if you're kind of old school and you're not open to someone trying something new in the industry, I don't like that, right? So like, you gotta let people come in and take their shot, and like at the end of the day, if you guys fail, define fail. I don't believe in that word in a lot of cases, but you freaking got Joe Montana to invest in your company. Like, you say whatever you want. Like, that's freaking cool. I know that's just step one, but like,
yeah. No, I really appreciate that. Thanks for saying that, Pace. And I think, like, I sometimes, not that I'm like that old and seasoned or whatever, but I sometimes advise early startups, and, I think anyone and sometimes I'm presented with very shitty ideas, but like, I always encourage people to do their best, I try to like guide them in the right direction. But, I think there's very few things that I find more objectionable than people who are just, criticizing people that are trying their best to, improve the user experience for players. Just to go back briefly to what you're saying, like, I think that it's true that a lot has been automated in the industry, and it's, there has been some innovation, but on the whole, like, as long as you have the ability to limit or ban anyone that's making money off of you, it's just not really worth your time and effort to make these markets super hyper efficient, right? Because like, you could, like, if you can just hire traders for $40,000 a year to do this manually, like, why would you invest $2 million into automating X, Y, and Z? And so like, I really do still think that there's so much innovation that has to happen in this industry, which I think is inevitable. It might not necessarily be us. I mean, I do think it will be us that does this, but like, there's no way that the industry looks as it does a decade from now.
Yeah, and I think like to that point, like this is obviously a separate discussion. It's one that comes up on this podcast like over and over and over again. But obviously close to home for you, not in New York. I know you're in New York now, but close to home in Harvard. There, Harvard is the Massachusetts. Trying to figure out why players are being limited and what the process is, and then none of the sports books showing up for that whole thing. And I don't think they showed up because all the other states could have watched it because it's a public hearing in Massachusetts, where then all the other states can fall like dominoes, or and really create a problem for the sports books. The industry is at the beginning of regulation, and the pro player movement online right now is pretty powerful. Like there's a lot of stuff going on there on a regular basis where major eyeballs are being exposed to some of the practices that are occurring. So you have to ask yourself the question, like, okay, at what point do the regulators get involved with some of these books and some of their practices and the things that are going on? And then separately of that, at what point do the sports books realize that the current model isn't going to be sustainable for the long term, where they're going to have to make some adjustments? And that's where, when you have competition in the marketplace of sportsbooks like yourselves that come in and say, hey, we're going to do it this way, or at least we're going to try, at a bare minimum, and this is where I say define the word fail, at a bare minimum, you're going to sharpen the axe of the industry, where they go, oh shit, these guys are making some waves and some ripples. What are they doing that we can now put into practice? And this is separately from sports betting entirely. But I'll never forget the day when I opened up stories on Instagram and I was like, holy shit, they copied Snapchat, and now Snapchat's like almost doesn't even exist. Meanwhile, so like, iron sharpens iron. It's like at a bare minimum, if you guys do make waves in the industry, you're going to better the industry by making sports books change some of the things that they're going to need to do to succeed, if you guys have any level of success. And that alone is a huge thing to be able to accomplish.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Jacob, this has been awesome having you on. What a great conversation. And I think both Pace and I absolutely love what you're trying to accomplish with Novig, and look forward to seeing it play out. If people want to connect with you, they want to follow you, they want to get more involved with Novig, they want to find out more about it, what can they do? Where do they go?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, I'd say sign up for our waitlist on our website if you're based in the US or elsewhere, novig.us. And you can follow me on Twitter, J__Fort, or Novig_app. I also host a podcast where we have lots of other conversations similar to this, called Linecraft. And you can follow Novig on TikTok and Instagram as well. You can reach out to me personally at jacob@novig.co. I'm pretty responsive if you have any ideas or whatever it is. Always love talking to people in the community. And we also have a Discord, which is, especially when we're live, is a lot of fun. So sort of like a group chat with all of your buddies betting on sports against each other, but with a couple thousand or
against each other. I love that.
Yeah. we have a similar thing at InPlay Live, but we bet with each other.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Well, yeah, this was a lot of fun, and thanks for having me on.
Hey, really, really glad to have you, Jacob. Let's stay in touch, and we'd love to have you back on the show at some point, maybe a year from now, and we'll see where you guys are at, and if whether or not you're coming to Canada, because we would definitely love to. That's all I care about at this point.
If you didn't notice, this show's public, but at the same time, Shane's just really trying to get you guys to come.
I'll Canada. I'm a big Habs fan, so I'll plug that.
Oh, you don't have to plug that. You can keep that to yourself.
There you go. There you go.
All right, love it.
All right, Jacob. Thanks again for coming on this show. To Jacob, to Pace, to all the sports bettors around the world. Till next week, keep eating those books. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join InPlay Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.